I just couldn't believe that it was happening to me, to be honest. And I just thought, what's going to happen to my kids? I've got to fight with everything I've got to be here for them. So I thought I'm just going to take every treatment they throw at me. I thought I was out of options at that point, and I thought, well, if it helps me, it's a bonus, but I might be helping someone in the future. I thought I might get a few extra months with my kids, which would be great. Never give up hope. And although you might get up every day now, think about it, first thing you think about, first thing, cry or whatever, you will come to a stage where you will wake up and cancer won't be the first thing on your mind.
Patient Voices is proudly supported by sponsors who have no editorial control over the content. Hi everyone, I'm Yvonne Diaz. I'm a co-founder of Oncogene Cancer Research, and I'm really pleased to be joined again with Julia, who's living with stage 4 ROS1 positive lung cancer here in England. Welcome back, Julia.
Thank you.
So we were talking about how you were diagnosed with stage 4 ROS1 cancer in 2015. And it's a very different landscape then. And I just want to get into like the stories of hope, because I think when we're first diagnosed, knowing that someone like you was out there, I'm sure would have completely lifted your spirits. So I hope we can do that for other people. One of the things that I love that you said earlier is that when you were told nothing could be done, you just didn't accept that. What did that mean for you? Did you advocate? Did you research? Did you just push for opinions?
I just couldn't believe that it was happening to me, to be honest. And I just thought, what's going to happen to my kids? I've got to fight with everything I've got to be here for them. They were still in primary. My girls were in primary school. My son was in his first year of secondary school, and I was just like, I'm not having this for them. So I thought, I'm just going to take every treatment they throw at me and see what happens.
Amazing. I mean, and that did lead you to a clinical trial, which
Yeah.
for a lot of people, choosing a clinical trial for their first line is not something people think. And also, there can be this impression that clinical trials is for when you run out of options. So
Yeah.
that was a
Well,
very great choice.
I thought I was out of options at that point, and I thought, well, if it helps me, it's a bonus, but I might be helping someone in the future by me going on this treatment now. That's how I went about it, really. I thought I might get a few extra months with my kids, which would be great, and I might be helping somebody, and that's what sort of drove me on in the beginning.
That's amazing. And I think so many of us do think like that. We want to add to the body of research. Obviously, you have to think of yourself first, right? We're not just doing trials to support research. You have to know
Yeah,
that is a good choice for you. Let's talk a little bit about your family as well, because your kids were so young. I think you said your kids were 7, 10, and 12, something
yeah.
like that, right? And very young and very needy time and things you don't want to miss out on. None of us want to miss any of it, and cancer happens to the whole family. So,
Yeah.
do you want to talk a little bit more about how you've managed it with your children?
Yeah. Well, a friend said to me right at the beginning, only tell other people what you want your kids to know, because someone could be chatting, not thinking their child's listening,
Yes.
and then they go to school and go, "Oh, your mum's dying, isn't she?" I only ever told people what I wanted, apart from close friends and family, obviously. But they didn't, they just knew that I had cancer. They didn't know the seriousness of it. And the kids were on a need to know basis, even like on the cisplatin when I felt terrible. I would get up every morning and get dressed before the kids went to school, just so that they could see that I was okay. Even if, as the door was closing, I sort of lay down. I was up and ready, dressed every day for them.
I truly relate to that because I've always been a working mom. I know you've been a working mom when your kids were young as well. And when I went back to work, my kids felt good because they've only ever known a working mom. So just they were like excited. And I thought, gosh, that
Yeah,
was I didn't expect. So we put on our brave face for our children.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And would they ask you questions, or would you talk about scans, or would you just,
I tended not to. I mean, like, if someone would say in front of them, when is your next scan? And I'll say next week, then they might say, how did your scan go? But other than that, I thought, well, no news is good news as far as they're concerned. They don't need to know the nitty gritty of it all.
and has that changed since they've become adults? Because 12 is now, your son, I guess, is 22 or so,
Yeah,
and it's a very different age, but he's still vulnerable, right? You still
yeah,
need your parents
yeah.
in
I
that way.
think it was harder going through the leptomeningeal because they was also more aware of what was going on when they were younger. They knew I was seriously ill. I was in ICU, but I didn't think they could see my mortality at that age, whereas when they was older, they definitely could.
Well, the way you're describing it, you had to use walking push implement and all that. So that's a very visible sign. You're wearing
Yeah,
glasses, you're like, whoa, I can't make it across the room. I mean, that's definitely
yeah,
very interfering. And yeah, so did you, was that more challenging with them? Were they more aware and more terrified? Because it also makes it stressful for you.
yeah, yeah. I think they did find it hard. I've asked them all over the years, do you want to speak to a counsellor or anything? Do you need my youngest? She saw the school counsellor, and just before we was going into lockdown, I think she had one online session. She said, "Oh, I don't want to see her anymore." And I was like, "Why not?" She said, "Oh, I've said everything I need to say." I think she just needed someone to purge it all to. And yeah, then she felt she was fine. But the other two was like, oh, what's the point? You've got it. Talking about it's not going to cure it. So yeah, everyone's different. But yeah, they were pretty upset. My son goes to the gym every day. He'd stop in the hospital and saw me every day with his friends.
That's nice. That's really sweet. Yeah. No, and it's wonderful that you check in on that way because you don't know. I had a similar thing with my children. They've not wanted any support. I think sometimes there's a stigma against the support, but I'm glad your daughter did take that up, and like you say, just being heard helped her. That's wonderful. And since your own diagnosis, I mean, the one thing I know you've done is you've gotten really involved in the ROS1 community. And because I think when you are diagnosed, like we say, being there, finding others like yourself can be really important. So where does that fit in for you? What made you get involved, and what does it bring for you?
Yeah. Well, at first, I didn't know I was ROS1. And around that time, I joined a support group called Every Breath. And I didn't even think that would be for me. I thought, oh, sitting around talking about being, but it wasn't like that. It was really uplifting. So I really quite enjoyed it. And to be honest, I didn't even know there was a ROS1 community at that point. It was only when someone without came along and we was talking and he found out I was ROS1 and he said, "Oh, are you on the ROS Wonders page?" And I was like, "Oh, no, I didn't even know they existed." So I came home and Googled it and found them. And then a couple of years ago, when it all sort of started, we had some patients had a meeting with Professor Popat, and he went through about starting a charity and everything. And I was really on board at that point, helping out. And Catherine has been absolutely amazing in getting everything off the ground. And I became the treasurer and have supported getting our message across, how rare we are and what little treatments are available to ROS1 patients. So I've been to conferences and held stalls. We've been to Parliament trying to get support and stuff. So we've done a lot in the years since we've been a charity.
I'll put a link in for the ROS1 UK
Yeah,
community. There's also ROS1 global US community as well. So I think it is so important to always empower yourself with your specific kind of lung cancer, right? I have ALK and there's an ALK US/worldwide group, and then we have an ALK UK group. And I do find having information from both to be very helpful because the treatments in the US or other countries are not always available here, right? We have a very particular system. In many ways, it's good, and other times it can be more challenging. But understanding how to navigate that power comes from people like yourself, like Catherine, who are bringing this information to others. So it's brilliant that with Catherine's rejoining, it's becoming more invigorated and you've been growing that
Yeah.
community.
Yeah, and it's been a big help to some people. We've got the WhatsApp group now that it's got a nice feel.
That's exciting. And you're having your first patient conference this year
We
in
are
September,
having our first
right?
conference, yeah, which is be fabulous to all be in the same room.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I want to come back to when you were talking about the support group when you joined Every Breath. And I remember the same thing. I had a very bad image of what a support group was. Actually, it's the most amazing thing finding other people because you feel almost immediately understood. You
Yeah,
make friends faster with people that maybe you wouldn't be friends with because
yeah,
you have this relatable part of your life.
yeah. Well, through every breath, we just sort of got getting talking to other women. There were six of us, sort of similar. We all had children. A couple was a bit older. We started meeting up for coffee separately, and we called ourselves the Coffee Up a Lung Club. And we'd sort of meet up a couple of times a month. It was like really nice.
And it's amazing. And actually, I met you through these different groups. There was a newly diagnosed ALK patient. It was just in and out of lockdown. She's like, I just need to see someone face to face. I'm tired of this online stuff. And
Yeah,
when you're diagnosed, having a real person can give you that ray of sunshine and hope. And it was nice because there were a couple, ROS1. It's just about meeting others. We have such relatable experiences.
yeah. And the humour goes with it as well. If you'd done it with a sort of non-cancer patient, they'd be sort of horrified, but someone else with lung cancer gets it.
Oh, that's it's so true. I love the dark humor as well. I mean, I think you have to laugh. You have to
Yeah,
be able to go a little bit dark. I think it's hard to do that with your loved ones as well.
yeah, definitely.
Maybe in closing, so you've given us so much to think about in terms of your 10 years of being diagnosed, how you've gotten through this, joining clinical trials, finding out your biomarker, and then now dealing with this hurdle, but really just moving forward every day. So what would be your advice to someone newly diagnosed today or who finds themselves with ROS1 or any other lung cancer?
Say never give up hope. And although you might get up every day now, think about it. First thing you think about, first thing, cry or whatever, you will come to a stage where you will wake up and cancer won't be the first thing on your mind. It will be like, what are the kids doing? It will be just life is normal, especially on a TKI. You can live normal life.
That's wonderful. I think that's so true because in the beginning, it goes through your thoughts all day and all the time, really. So
Yeah, yeah.
wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Julie. It's been wonderful speaking with you, and we'll stay tuned and keep in touch on your story.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Yvonne.
Thank you.